Hello friends. So today I am working on this little piece. I have these 3 fabrics that I bought at a yard sale. They were in a kit or like a simply sewing package of fabrics. Aren't they pretty? I love them. So I thought, okay, I want to make a little design that highlights them. I pulled out a vintage little embroidery here that I thought was really pretty. And I'll show you later, but this is going to go on a tote bag. I arranged the layers of the fabric and I just freehand cut them out. So I made a bird with a couple layers of the wing and a little beak. And then I'm putting these other layers as a tail. I'll put those on later because they're going to go onto the tote bag. Then I just cut 3 petals of each fabric. And I didn't use the green for the petals. I used another little scrap of fabric I had around. So I love how those turned out. Now, what I did different that I don't usually do is I glued them down. I have never done that before. Usually I will pin things, but pins are such a pain when you've got just these little bits of fabric. So, clear Elmer's washable glue. I could theoretically wash this and have the glue come out. I don't think that's necessary. I was very curious to see how it would be. Now, yeah, it's a little stiff in the couple of places. I just used a little glue. I'm not like securing them down with the glue, just enough to hold them in place. And I really like how that came out. I could still peel them off if I didn't like the placement, but it's dried overnight. That's not necessary at all. I just happened to arrange it before I went out with my family last night and then came back this morning to stitch it up. I chose this fabric or this thread here that is a pink, and I actually grabbed a few different colors of pink. I may swap it out, I don't know. So that's what I'm doing this morning. Now the only thing I'm interested to see is whether it's a pain to sew through wherever I have glue, like right here. There's a little patch of glue. Is that going to be a problem? It's definitely stiffer, but it's not a problem. All right, well, that's good to know. I've seen some of you use glue sticks, and I looked for a glue stick. I have one somewhere around here, but what I found was my Elmer's clear craft glue, and it seems that this works just fine. All right, let me take a moment to ask, how are you doing today? I hope you have something fun to work on. I finished my fabric journal yesterday in time to give it to my sweet daughter for her birthday. And I was so excited, and she loved it. Mostly she loved it because she loves me. But I think it'll be a very sweet thing for her to have as she gets older. I can just see her putting, like I used to collect business cards of different restaurants I would go to, especially when I lived in New York City. It was so fun. And I would write even a little bit about when I went to that place. And that was a fun little remembrance of my time in New York. I loved that, and you can do that for wherever you live. Just little mementos of places we've traveled. I used to do that with other business cards too, because it was a record of all the interesting places. And I love that. But, she's going to prom next month. She could put her prom tickets in there. Just all the things that, are the little mementos of life. And I have boxes of mementos. And I'm just thinking it'd be fun to have, I also have scrapbooks. That was a big thing when I was in high school, was doing scrapbooks. So I do have some of those. But, I thought it's a fun way to keep little bits of paper from your life in something that's beautiful. All right, first petal done. See, so I'm just doing a little running stitch along the edge, nothing fancy, and I like that. That's pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and I actually am going to knot that off because I can't easily get to the next one, and I don't want a huge string running across the back. So we'll just do a quick little knot and move on. I'll trim that one off while I'm there. and move on to the next petal. Now, as you can see, some of them are going to go over the edge, and I may secure those onto the tote bag. The reason I'm doing this like this and just securing it to this piece instead of to the final piece is because the tote bag is already complete. It's just one I bought from, I don't know, Hobby Lobby or something. And I don't want to have to mess with sewing through this. I could deconstruct it, take the seam out, re-sew it later, but why do that? I can just do most of my design on here, and then the only thing I'll have to sew on there is this full piece. So that's what I decided to do. But some of these petals will go off the edge because they'll really make it so it goes onto the tote bag better. Now, I'm pulling that off. It didn't dry quite in the angle I wanted it. So the glue makes it really easy to, to pull that off. Hello, Maggie. Maggie has come to visit again. Well, yesterday I did a huge amount of work on my sewing room, craft room, and currently we are in the state of it looks worse before it looks better. Although my room itself is quite clean and somewhat empty. I had a tremendous amount of boxes of linens piled up in the corner of my room, and now they're all in the next room. The reason for that is because I wanted to take everything out, and then I'm going to bring it back in a more organized way. I think sometimes when you're cleaning out an area, you just need to get the room emptied to some degree, and then you can come back in, and put things the right way. The only issue is that I don't have the furniture that I'm going to use. I ordered some storage cubbies. They're coming on Monday. That's fine. All right. I'm going to keep my string running here. I keep calling it string, my thread. Well, actually, let's see. I think I'm going to wait on sewing these parts down until it's on the tote bag, because it's not really, I can sew it down to the crochet, but that's not super sturdy, and it's already secured down enough. So I'll wait on further stitching on this little one until I put it together. Anyway, so I finished up a ton of work yesterday, and I am so happy. I'll put in a few photos, but I have now a shelf to the side here, and it allows me to put my camera attached to the bookcase instead of to my desk, which means I will jostle you all around a little bit less, I think. That's a positive. So I'd been I hadn't really thought about that, how I would be able to do that, but it worked out perfectly. Then I have some of my collection of little, just little bowls and decorative ceramics. Whenever I'm out at a thrift store or at an estate sale, if I see a little cute decorative bowl like this, or like this one's full of Suffolk puffs and needle threaders. Why? I don't know, but it's fun. But, it's cute. It has detail on it. And I've got these everywhere. I've got them all around me. And so I put a bunch of them up on the shelf next to me. So now I can see them, and they're really cute, and they're not taking up as much space around me on my table. It is lovely. So I'm feeling so much more, what's the word? Kind of settled to have things cleaned up. I think there's something about the space that you live and work in, and if it looks nice, then, it frees up mental space. And I've been thinking about this project for a long time, so now it is underway, and I don't have to think about it and figure out what I should do or stock Facebook Marketplace for the perfect set of cubbies, which are never going to materialize. Every time they do, they get sold before I can get them. So I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to buy some and it'll be all right. So I did that. So they arrive Monday, which means I have done as much as I can for the weekend, which is kind of a nice feeling. There's something about reaching a point in a project where you just can't really do anymore that, for me, then I can set it aside. So that means I get to sit down and work on this little fun project. And I like that. I think I'm going to move that one petal down a little bit. But overall, I like where they ended up. I go ahead and let that one overlap. So last night we went out to dinner for my daughter's birthday, and we went to a really nice place downtown. It was so fun to go out with my kids who are now, almost adults. My daughter turned 18, my son is 16, and they're such great people. So it was just fun. Fun to go out as a family and enjoy each other. We're all really busy. My kids both work and they go to school. And just seeing each other is not something that happens all the time anymore. So having a dinner out that was beautiful and, kind of fancy to celebrate her birthday was so fun. Then we came home and opened presents. And as I think I mentioned, we got her a record player, which was so fun. And she has her albums, which she's very excited about. I think it's fun to have a collection, like records or whatever, and I'm interested to see what kinds of music she feels like she wants to collect. But, it's funny because I go to antique stores and I am very dialed into finding fabric. I don't know about you. And my little bowls. Sometimes I'll look around for those too. Although, I don't know, when I'm at an antique store, I'm mostly looking for fabrics because they tend to price little bowls and trinket dishes way more than I would pay for them. I'm more likely to find a little bowl at a yard sale or a thrift store or something like that. But anyway, when I'm, it's almost like I have blinders on when I'm at these places because I'm really only looking for the one thing. And, then you suddenly look up and think, oh, there's all these people selling vinyl, selling records. I didn't notice them before because I wasn't looking for it. But now I'm like, oh, well, these people have a big bin of records. And of course, the thing is that the really nice ones are really expensive or very rare and hard to find. So you get a lot of the same kinds of artists that are maybe kind of second tier. But one of the fun things that I did was I actually bought a number of albums from my own childhood. When I was a little kid growing up, we would go camping, and my parents would always bring Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers and Willie Nelson. They were the camping people. Of course, that was on cassette because I'm old. I'm just kidding. But like back in the day, in the 80s when I was growing up, we would go in our truck and we had a cassette player in the truck. And so those are the albums we would listen to while we were driving. So it's funny because we really didn't listen to them anywhere else, only when we were camping. And that music is camping, and John Denver too. So anyway, I found Lily a John Denver album and a Dolly Parton album, like the one that we would always listen to. I can still remember the cover art. I found it. And and these albums, one of them was like $8 and some of them were a couple bucks because, they were just in an antique mall in a big bin of records. I got her one Peter, Paul, and Mary. If any of you ever listened to Peter, Paul, and Mary, please comment below because I feel like that's very unusual. But my parents were really into folk music. And so I grew up listening to some of that. And like if there ever was a PBS special on, they always would watch it. So I'm pretty familiar with that style of music. And also, when we would go camping, my mom would bring her guitar, and we had some friends, and they would bring their guitars, and we would all sit around the campfire, and we would sing. And we would sing folk songs in harmony. That's what I grew up doing, which I think is why I can often hear the harmony before I can hear the melody on a song that's new to me. I just hear those harmonies because that's what I grew up with. So I collected just a few albums that were kind of just for fun, but to get her started with some vinyl. So, and then I ordered one album that is, I think, maybe just coming out, so it's still coming. And then one of her favorite bands, I got an album from them. I love that, like, that's a thing, and that people have, like, some bands release their things on vinyl still, and I don't know, it's just a different sound. It's very present. I think some people, there's something about how the music carved those ridges in a piece of vinyl, and then you're listening to it. Just, I don't know, it's a little more immediate, I think. I remember that from when I was a kid. It's just kind of cool. So, anyway, she's going to get that set up, and I will enjoy seeing if she is enjoying that. I think she will. I think it's kind of cool. All right, first flower is finished. Very simple. May come in with a little button here. I don't know. We'll see when it's finished what it looks like. All right, I'm going to go and do some of these other flowers, and I will be back. All right, so I have stitched down my little petals, and now I am working on my bird. Isn't she a cute little birdie? I know she has a double wing. I don't care. I think it looks cute. We'll just call it feathers. So I'm just stitching through all the layers. I'm not doing the bottom layer first and then adding others. Because I glued it down, I can go ahead and stitch through all of it. And I have this one little feather back coming off. I like where it is, so I'm just going to leave it. I am going to leave the other tail feathers until I stitch it down to the tote bag. At this point, I could go ahead and stitch it down. I'm just going to finish off a few more stitches on here, getting the bird on this doily, but it's close. And I think I'll just do stitching all around, even though I'm not stitching it to anything, just to kind of keep the look going. Well, I was just catching a tiny bit of Kate in the nest. She was working on a little stitching project. I enjoy her videos. If you have any that you particularly love watching, please feel free to comment below. I always love to hear about what my subbies enjoy seeing. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd sure appreciate it. I think I've reached 450 subscribers, which I've been at this for about a month, and I really appreciate every single one of you who's taken the time to subscribe to my channel. That's pretty cool. My goal is just to build a little community here of people who also love stitching. So thank you for being here. It's always fun to hear about what you're doing. And I have the same name, Kate Stitching, over on Instagram. If you want to follow me on there, that allows me to see what you're doing. So I always enjoy that. All right, we'll get this layer of bird. I'm just stitching on the wing to kind of give it a little stability. It is a little bit harder to go through a couple layers of fabric with the glue on it, but it's not bad. So I am definitely going to do that again in the future. I think that it made it so easy to put this together. Much easier than when I put pins in for this kind of work. Pins are fine when I'm working with kind of bigger pieces of fabric or when there's fewer little shapes involved. But for this, with all these petals and the bird, definitely it was easier to just have it glued down. Made this a very simple project. All right, let's see, I'm there. I'm just gonna run my thread across here. Let's see. I guess I'll go all the way to the end of it. Well, do I want to do that? I'll just come over to here. The back isn't going to be visible, and also because I've got a few layers of fabric, I'm not worried about seeing my thread behind the fabric. If I were only working on, you know, this layer that is a thinner fabric, then I would probably go ahead and tie off behind these different things, and I wouldn't run a thread behind like that, because I don't want to be able to see a thread behind, you know, running there. But with these layers of fabric, it's not going to show up, so I can go ahead and do that. And it's not very far, just an inch or so. All right, we're going to stitch down this little beak. And then I'm just going to take a little stitch there because I don't feel like it's all the way up on the corner. I just want to make it so that these little pieces are going to stay on the tote bag. Tote bags can get a good amount of use, so I want to make sure that mine stay together. So I'm doing a few extra stitches now down the edge. Just getting the rest of the body stitched onto the doily. Up and down and back. And that should do it. All right. There's the back story. Not bad. See, it looks like I punched down through a hole in the crochet. I'm going to come back out here. Then back through and knot it off, just to make sure that that's secure. It is a beautiful spring day out today. Very happy. We had a little cold snap the last couple of days, and it went down into, there was frost out on the ground yesterday, which, you know, I live in Florida. It's almost April, but sometimes we get that final little burst of winter. All right, there she is. I love this. Okay, now I'm going to take this tote bag. Just a basic one. I think I bought it for $2 at Hobby Lobby, something like that. Just a basic little tote bag, and look how cute that's going to be. Isn't that fun? I love that. Now, I also have these other little feathers, and I thought I might add more feathers underneath here. Yeah, I think that's fun. But I'm just going to stitch them onto the bird and the tote bag because obviously, I mean, I could have stitched them onto the bird only first, but I'm going to need to stitch them down to the tote bag, so I might as well do that. I'm just lining it up, eyeballing it here. I want it to come just under where the tote bag handles are. It has a bottom that goes like this, and so I just want to make sure it fits well. All right. That's easy. Now, okay, it's a completed tote bag. As I mentioned before, there's a couple ways I could do this. I could go ahead and unsew all of this in order to, you know, be able to just lay it out flat and sew it up. But I don't want to do that. I like these seams how they are. They look really nice, and I just want to leave it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch it directly onto the tote bag. Now the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to put something in the tote bag. I could put a book in here. I'm going to try a couple sheets of cardstock and see if this is enough. It'll just keep me from running it through to the other side. I'll feel that paper there, and I'll know when I'm, you know, going through the paper or through the cloth, but without hitting the other side. So Just kind of make sure that it's lined up there. Okay, so I'm just going to start and stitch this on. Also with a tote bag, I mean, I'm just going to hold it. It'll be more difficult once I get further down. At the top, it's easy. That is a very satisfying little stitch. This tote bag is canvas, but it's a pretty lightweight fabric. And then of course this is a nice old cotton. I'm running it pretty close to the edge, but I'm not trying to hide the stitches. I could, but I don't mind them there. I like that look of a running stitch. Just going to tuck it behind my bird applique here. And that's, oh, sorry. I'm going to avoid the bird where I can here. I do have probably too long of a piece of thread, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's what some would call lazy girl length of thread, but I want it to go easily all around. Okay, so now I'm just going to reposition my paper behind there again. And we'll see here. So again, I do now here want to stitch this bird down. So I'm going to go ahead and run it through the applique. And it'll have a few little stitches, which is fine. Turn this so I can reach under a little easier. Just want to make sure it's going through all my layers of fabric. Now I could go over and get these, but I'm just going to stitch this whole panel down first, and then I'll come through and do any extra stitches that are needed for the edges, the petals, the feathers on the bird, all that kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to continue around wrestling with the fabrics and I will be right back. Okay, so one thing I'm discovering is that if I kind of pinch the fabric over here, it keeps it together, and it makes it a little bit easier for me to sew. It is a pain to do it this way, where I'm having to, having to stitch through and not being able to just hold the fabric, but it's, I think, going to be simpler in the long run. Okay, so I'm learning as I go. I ended up putting a book in here, one of my Jennifer Clouston stitching books. This is making this way easier. I also went ahead and pinned down this piece because it's shifting too much while I sew, and I don't want it to get really wonky. We all love a little wonky, but when it comes to a panel that you just want centered on your bag, not so much on the wonky. So this is making this a lot easier. It's so funny how just putting a little, you know, that's a perfect little book because it's not very wide, but, and it's a good amount, a good size. And that is making this 1,000 times easier. So it's gotten to be a habit where I will, on a Friday, I will look and see what estate sales are happening on the weekend to see if there's anything I need to go and check out. But I'm not doing that this weekend because I have many things I still need to organize that I already have. I am at a good place. Now, there are always more things out there, and they are fun to find. So, it's not like it's the end of my hunting for random fabrics, but it is definitely not the weekend for it. So it was like, oh, I'm just going to spend the day stitching and getting a few other things done. My daughter's having friends over tonight to watch movies and play games, so that sounds fun. I actually have to run out quickly to photograph some people at an event, but I'm not staying for the event this time. I'm just going to go get the photos of the people in their finery and then come home. That way I can be around if her friends need anything, which I love. She will not need anything. I will make that clear. My sweet girl is very independent, but I'm around. It's good for mom to be around if possible. So, which probably means I will get more stitching done this evening. It's funny how your role changes in birthday parties over the years. I have never been the mom who had the fully, like, I don't know, some of the parties, they're so themed and amazing, and that's not really my forte. But I would make cakes. Once I made a cake that looked like the dog. It didn't really look like the dog, but we got a chuckle out of it. One time I made a piñata. It was a fish. It also was a little odd, but we had fun. One year I was coming up with games, and so I had the kids, the kiddos had a relay in which I had frozen a lot of plastic animals in a block of ice, and they had to pour water on the block of ice to release the animals. I think it took 45 minutes. It was not an easy relay. It was maybe not one of my more successful game ideas, but it did take a long time. So, you know, those were the days. But today, not so much. I think I'm ordering pizza. We talked about making something we could, but I think maybe that's gonna work. And then they're gonna have snacks and watch. I think they're watching The Princess Bride, which, if you have never watched it, is fabulous. I think my sisters and I could probably quote the entire movie, start to finish, if required. And possibly do some of the choreography of the fighting scenes. All right, that is that on stitching this down. Okay, now let's look at this. Okay, I love it. All right, all I have left to do is do a couple of little stitches here and there to get these tacked down, and then we will be good to go. All right, now I have everything stitched down on the sides, and I'm trying to decide what I want to do with my flowers. Buttons are always a fun option. I'm kind of thinking about this the colors I've got. There's a cute pink one. I don't have as many yellow buttons. That would be fun, but I'm not sure that I have the right kind of yellow. It's too mauve. Let's see. Different shape might be fun. That's cute. I like that because it's kind of swirly. Let's see. I have a darker pink. I have a swirly one. And then, ooh, what about that? It might be too small for that. Oh, I like that button though. That kind of goes better with that. Let's see, what else do I have? Aren't buttons so fun? I have a good collection thanks to my friend who gave me a bunch of buttons. That's fun. I like those. All right, so I could also do French knots there. I mean, there's lots of ways I could finish this, but I think that the buttons, yeah, I like that. Provides a little extra interest. Okay. Now the question is, do I want to, I think I'm going to use a pink thread. I think that will be good and just kind of blend in. So there's lots of ways I could start this. Again, I'm still working with my tote where I don't want to, stitch it to the back, but these, I can just put my hand behind and these will be pretty easy. Whoops. There went my other buttons. Okay, easier said than done, but I think I got it now. Yeah, I mean, all in all, if I had it to do over, I think I would still leave this thing as it is, all constructed. There are some other projects where it just would make sense to deconstruct it in order to make it easier, but with this, it's fine. Because most of the stitching was done on a panel and then just I stitched that to this piece, I didn't really need to deconstruct it, so that made it easier. Now you'll notice that I'm trying to minimize the amount of stitching that's actually in the inside of the tote bag. I don't feel like I need to line it. There's not that much stitching. You don't want stuff to get stuck or caught on your stitches, but if you don't have too much, I feel like it'll work. Another option would be you could stitch up a little liner and then just insert it inside. That's another possibility, but I don't think this needs that. Yeah, I think these buttons are a great choice. It just makes it look more finished. I could do French knots. That's another way I like to finish flowers. Sometimes I'll stitch a bunch of French knots. Or another option is I'll do a woven rose in the center. Sometimes people call them maybe spider web. I'm not sure. But I call them woven roses, where you just maybe make 5 stitches and then you go around and around, over, under. That makes a great flower center too. And I like those. But I like the buttons on this. I think they're really cute. And you could obviously use just a sewing cotton to stitch on buttons. I'm using embroidery floss because it's what I'm using for this whole project. Lots of ways to do this. It's just what I have. I do have a little bit of sewing cotton, but not a lot, because pretty much what I do is embroidery and slow stitching. All right, this length of thread is not going to work for a button, so let's pull a little bit more and finish it off. All right, final button. This one is super cute. blends in really well. Sorry if that's hard to see. There's a lot of tote bag going on here. Or maybe if I work it this direction, I will be able to show you better. All right. These buttons don't have to be, you know, super secure because it's not like you're buttoning things with them, but you still want to put several stitches in and make sure that they're not going to go anywhere. All right. There we go. Our little tote bag with flowers and a little bird and this vintage embroidery. I love it. Now I could do a decoration on the back, but I'm not going to. I think it's perfect just as it is. So thank you so much for joining me on my tote bag with our little scrappy bird and our fun flowers and buttons. I think this is a fun little project and I look forward to seeing what you do with it. That's all for now. I hope you will join me again in my studio soon. And until then, get out there, be creative, and enjoy. Bye-bye.